The Friday Vibe on WNUT.
It is Friday. It is Brandon. I am in the WNUT studio ready to vibe with you today. And we're going to talk about a group called the Jams, or the Justified Ancients of Moo Moo, or the Time Lords, or the KLF. And I know that's a lot of different names for a group, but hey, there's an interesting story behind it. I can't even scratch the surface of all of it today. There are books, there are documentary films. If you want to get into the Jams, the KLF, and I highly recommend you do. But for right now, I'm going to give you the basics. I'm going to give you the Cliff's Notes version. I talked about the Jams, or the KLF, on the Friday Vibing episode of WNUT, episode 28, the one that launched the Friday Vibe, the one that got me, interested in doing this with you every week. On that episode, I played a track that a local station called Channel Z would play every Friday back in the mid-90s called the 5 O'Clock Hootie Hoo, and it was based on a track by the Time Lords, who were also the Jams and the KLF. The Jams, the Justified Ancients of Moo Moo, that was their long name. They kind of burst onto the scene in 87 with an album called 1987, and then in parentheses, What the Fuck Is Going On? It was essentially like a sort of electronic and sample-based hip-hop. It was these two dudes from Britain named Bill Drummond and Jimmy Cauty, and they were rapping, and let's be honest, they heavily sampled. I mean, they sampled other records to the point where it was essentially considered plagiarism. And an organization in the UK called the Mechanical Copyright Protection Society actually came after them over it and shut them down. Like, they had to destroy any remaining unsold copies of that record that weren't already in the hands of fans who had bought them. Long story. So then they put out a second album in 1988 called Who Killed the Jams, and this would sort of begin their gradual transition into the KLF. People have often said that stands for Copyright Liberation Front. The band has given conflicting reports, as they often do, on what it actually stands for, or if it stands for anything. They gradually transitioned into the KLF, sort of getting away from the hip-hop they had been known for on the first album or two, and transitioning into sort of a house and electronic band, what we would call today EDM. That term didn't exist back then. And I'm not shitting you when I say they owned the planet in electronic dance music. It was insane. They couldn't put anything out that wasn't the hottest sound worldwide in the clubs. This is in the early 90s we're talking about. Tracks like What Time Is Love, or 3 AM Eternal, or Last Train to Trancentral. And by 91, they put out an album called The White Room. It was massive. They continued to be the biggest thing in the world, and then literally just decided by February 1992, we're done. We're getting out of the music industry, and they did. They exited in grand fashion, making kind of a huge spectacle at the Brit Awards that year, and then just disappearing. And, in the intervening years, from time to time, they've popped up doing something, whether it's been a new remix of an older track or remixes for other artists. They published a novel back in 2017. There's been a documentary film that came out just last year called Who Killed the KLF, about Bill Drummond and Tim Cauty and the band and the music and the furor that they created together. I kid you not, it is one of the most fascinating acts and stories in the history of music, in my humble opinion, and there is no rabbit hole deep enough to learn about these guys, what motivated them, and just, what makes them tick. They're both very brilliant guys to listen to and consume the artwork that they put out. And today I'm going to take you back to 1991, the White Room album, the last one they put out before they just decided to vanish. This is actually a remix of a track from that album. This is called Justified and Ancient, Stand by the Jams, which they took Tammy Wynette out of nowhere, put her on the track, and it became a massive club hit. And it was all over radio, was all over MTV. It's the kind of thing it sounds like if you weren't there. I'm just making this shit up, but it really happened. These guys had the magic touch to make it happen. And Tammy Wynette always spoke fondly of these guys and this experience. It really revitalized her career and interest in her just a few years before Rick Rubin would do the same thing for Johnny Cash. So, interesting sort of chain of events, not really related to one another, just kind of coincidental. But hey, the 90s were a wild time. And to pull back the curtain and give you a little look at just how wild they were, here is the KLF with Justified and Ancient, Stand by the Jams, featuring Tammy Wynette, on the Friday Vibe with WNUT.
They're justified and they're ancient, and they like to roam the land.
Just roll it from the top.
They're justified and they're ancient. I hope you understand.
To the bridge, to the bridge, to the bridge
They
now.
called me up in Tennessee. They said, Tammy, stand by the jams. But if you don't like what they're going to do, better not stop them 'cause they're coming through.
Bring the beat back.
All bound for Moonland. They're justified and they're ancient, and they drive an ice cream van.
Just roll it from the top.
They're justified and they're ancient, with still no master plan.
To the bridge, to the bridge, to the bridge
The
now.
mass train left an hour ago. They were singing all aboard, all bound for Moonland. Then someone started screaming, turn up the strobe. All bound for Moonland. All bound for Moonland.
Bring the beat back. Justified and ancient, ancient and justified. Rocket took the rhythm and the ice cream van with the plan and the key to enter moo. Vibes from the tribes of the jams. I know where the PD's at, 'cause I know what time it is. Free on the dime, make mine at 99. You style meanwhile, Lone Star and mission while fishing in the rivers of life. Fishing in the rivers of life. Fishing in the rivers of life. Fishing in the rivers, fishing in the rivers, fishing in the rivers of life. Bring the beat back.
All bound for Moonland. All bound for Moonland.
They travel the world in their ice cream van. They have voyaged the bottom of time. They have been to the place where the moo mate and the children still cry. Mine is a 99.
Bring the beat